Okay, let's start with the nation. Stock market gains 1.5 trillion naira on Tinubu's policy direction. PDP LP open case before tribunal. Petrol crisis trails president's fuel subsidy is gone pronouncement. Acting immigration CG directs prompt issuance of passports. OAU students Adedoyin, 2 others get death sentence. FG owing NNPCL 2.8 trillion naira, says Kiari. Zenith Bank is Africa's best in corporate governance and finance. Okay, which story are we starting with in the nation?
Okay, so I will start with petrol crisis trails the president's fuel subsidy is gone pronouncement. The president said that fuel subsidy is gone, and with that, they say the nation says depot owners abruptly stopped loading petroleum tankers. Lengthy queues resurfaced and commuters resorted to panic buying in filling stations in major cities across the state. The vice president also reiterated the president's position yesterday as he resumed office. We have the House of Rep members and the organized private sector also backing the petroleum subsidy removal, saying that it's long overdue. I'll just try and see if I can summarize this. The vice president was saying that the truth of the matter is that either we get rid of subsidy or the fuel subsidy gets rid of the Nigerian nation. Rest assured that our president is a man of strong will and conviction. In fullness of time, you appreciate his noble intentions for the nation. Of course, we have other stakeholders who are not in agreement. We have Labour saying that they find this insensitive and that in the light of the foregoing, the president should respect his own postulations and economic theories instead of daring the people, as this could be a costly gamble. TUC says this is a joke taken too far. But, you know, so many other stakeholders who are out for the subsidy removal are saying that they think this is long overdue. This is something that in the coming years we would appreciate, because they've called it, some stakeholders have called it illegal because this is not something that has been in our budget, you know, and we're spending money that was not even in our budget. So I guess it would unfold eventually how this is.
Okay, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I took a story inside the newspaper. The Central Bank of Nigeria yesterday said strategic efforts must be made to fortify states' capacity in the management of borrowing, debt recording, public financial management reform, and the development of debt management capacity. So he said this in Abuja at the opening ceremony of the training on subnational debt management performance assessment methodology tool organized by the West African Institute for Financial and Economic Management, WIFEM, in collaboration with the World Bank. And he went ahead to say that the legal, regulatory, and procedural framework for state borrowing are incomplete, adding that capacity limitations impede the efficacy and efficiency of public debt management. So the plenty English is that states are not able to manage their debts, they are not able to manage their fund, and there are certain metrics they use in checking the states. Said they are not meeting global best practices, most of the states. And they said they had about 13 indicators, including governance, quality, borrowing processes, financial management, and operational risk control, and the Nigerian states are performing below the global average, but they didn't tell us what they could do to improve their performance.
Great, so I have the human interest story. So businessman Dr. Ramon Adedoyin and 2 of his employees at the Hilton Hotel Ile-Ife have been sentenced to death, but to die by hanging, over the murder of the postgraduate student, if you remember, Timothy Adegoke, attended OAU, Obafemi Awolowo University. The hotelier, his manager, Adeniyi, Aderogba, and the supervisor, Oyetunde, Kazeem, all 3 were sentenced after the court presided over by Chief Judge of Osun State, Justice Adepele Ojo, found them guilty of conspiracy and murder. They've also said that the hotel should be forfeited to the government. The children of the deceased, their education will be sponsored by these 3 convicts. Maybe they may buy their property or something up until they complete their NYSC. Wow. So they ensure that the deceased family is, at least the children, are well taken care of by this judgment. But it's quite painful to say that the owner of Oduduwa University, he's the owner,
Founder of his
has found. I mean, well, I know they're going to appeal. I mean, this is just the first judgment. We'll see. I mean, we're sure that his lawyers will probably see how they can appeal this, but he has been sentenced to death by hanging. So there's an interesting conversation.
It's a high-profile case.
Yeah, it's quite a high-profile case, but we'll see how that goes. But I'm happy that it'd be nice to see if the family feels they've gotten justice. You know, sometimes they never,
It's not enough.
Not enough.
Yes, nothing can bring the person to justice.
Okay, let's move on quickly now to the Punch. Fuel sells 600 naira to the litre, queues worsen as filling stations shut. National Assembly anti-zoning group condemns alleged plan to arrest Litera and Yari. Adedoyin workers bag death sentence in hotel and hotel forfeited. Oyo police storm auxiliaries hideout, arrest 78 with arms. Tinubu inherits over 16 trillion naira uncompleted projects. 11 trillion naira spent on moribund refineries in 13 years as reps. And ASU, court okays no work, no pay policy. Okay.
So I'll take National Industrial Court in Abuja. The court held that the federal government was within its rights to withhold salaries of workers who embark on industrial action. It held that the no work, no pay rule enforced by the federal government against ASU, who went on strike last year, was legal. But it also said that it was in violation of the university autonomy for the federal government to impose the IPPIS on members of ASU, as they reserve the right to determine how their salaries should be paid. So we know that ASU are taking the federal government to court concerning their salaries, payment of their salaries from February 14th to October 7, 2022, when the strike was called off. So it's interesting to hear what the court had to say, because I know that we had discussed this, like, should they withhold their salary because they had gone on industrial, had gone on strike, and should they be paid? Legally, they shouldn't.
Yeah, so the new president of Nigeria, Bola Tinubu, has officially inherited over 16.29 uncompleted trillion uncompleted projects from his predecessor, Muhammadu Buhari, according to findings. So they said the project was identified through the National Monitoring and Evaluation Platform, IMAC, which was launched by the former president in December last year. And the former president says that they could no longer depend on their handful of monitoring and evaluation teams to oversee all the vast number of infrastructure projects spread across the country. So what they did was to, because the administration had invested so much in infrastructure, they needed an additional body to help in overseeing it and create adequate avenue for close monitoring by citizens, which will also help to close some gaps between what the citizens know and what is really happening. And it says with IMAC, the status of projects, total amounts appropriated and dispensed are now available in public space. So Nigerians can always go to IMAC, platform and look at the existing projects, what has been done and what hasn't. So they went ahead to list most of the projects that are still, not completed, about 33 of them. I'll just take a few here. It said the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, which cost about 305 billion naira, and it's a 126.6 kilometer road, is at 85% completion. They had postponed it, said they were going to finish it April 30. That didn't happen. It just kept moving because of all the heavy traffic for commuters on the road. They said Julius Berger is the one handling that project. There's also another project, Bodo Boni Road, estimated to cost about 200 billion naira. That's a 37.9 kilometer road. It's also being handled by Julius Berger. And they listed quite a number that the new president will be inheriting. Now we can go to IMAC and see the status of all the projects.
Okay, so let me take the story on the moribund refineries. So the House of Representatives ad hoc committee on the state of refineries in the country has put together a report and said that the federal government has spent 11 trillion since 2010 in rehabilitating these refineries. So many figures in the refineries, various amounts that have been spent at various levels. It says, but from 2010 to 2019, the committee said the nation's refineries were performing suboptimally with the annual combined capacity of less than 30%. Therefore, in year 2019, the NNPC obtained executive approval and shut down the refineries for comprehensive rehabilitation to restore the plants to a maximum of 90% completion. The point is, the refineries obviously are not working at optimal at this point. You can understand why Labour would be upset, even when you say remove subsidy. So that's why we have to ensure that monies set aside for rehabilitation is actually done, so that people can say we have options. But when the refineries weren't rehabilitated, we remove subsidy, people now begin to get upset. So this is why this article was quite interesting when it was presented at the National Assembly, where the chairman of the committee, Ganius Johnson, was not convinced. He failed to convince the Deputy Speaker Wase on why this report was such an important report to at the time. But I mean, it's part of the conversations we're having concerning subsidy refusal, removal, and rehabilitation of the refineries that we have. Okay, let's move on now to Daily Sun. Don't dare Nigerians, NLC wants Tinubu. Biafra Day, IPOP shuts down Southeast, 30 arrested in Enugu. Court okays federal government, no work, no pay against ASU. Senate leadership, Kalu in talks with Yari's camp. Zenith Bank names best corporate governance. Tinubu orders DSS to vacate EFCC's Lagos office forcefully taken over. And tribunal admits documents tendered by Obi in defense of petition. Okay, which story are we taking in Daily Sun?
Politics again, but this time at the National Assembly, Senate to be precise. So we have the chief whip of the Senate, Ojus Okalu. He has confirmed that he's in talk with the camp of the former governor of Zamfara, that's Abdulaziz Yari, and, you know, the aspirants for the office of the Senate president. So they're in talks to see, they're in talks, they say, and then their sponsors are in talks with each other so that we'd know in the end what we're going to have, if we're going to have a Kalu Yari or a Yari Kalu situation. But he, the former Abia State governor, says that he has no plans. I cannot step down for anybody. So he has no plans of stepping down for anybody, but they're in talks, and he says they're two gentlemen, they have sponsors. So the way he explains it, more like these sponsors are the ones really in charge. They're going to talk, and whatever the decision comes out, but that's what they will go with. And he says they're not greedy people, and what's important for them is the integrity of the National Assembly and also to support the president and the vice president in their job.
I was still reviewing Daily Sun. I have the story on the arrest, the 30 pro-Biafra agitators who were arrested in Enugu. So about 30 of them, the agitators were arrested yesterday by operatives of the Enugu State Police Command during a procession for the Biafra Day commemoration in the state. According to them, they were on the process of carrying out a march past at the Square Parade ground with their leader, Mazi Benjamin Kalu, in control of the... So then, that's when the police swooped in on them, hurled them into 5 Hilux trucks, and took them away to the police headquarters. According to them, they had on... They went armed. That's the agitators went armed. They had their Biafra Zionist insignia, stickers, flags of Biafra, and flags of the US and Israel. The state police, the first PRO there, said that when contacted, he didn't get back to the newsmen on time. I'm trying to find what he said eventually. But pretty much they were arrested and they were not allowed to continue with their procession. Yeah, that's really much the story.
Yeah, so we know that the president announced, talked about subsidy in his inaugural speech, and that caused a lot of panic buying. People were just everywhere. The filling station, most filling stations were locked. They were not selling anymore. But NLC is angry. And they are saying that they are warning the President Tinubu, not to dare the people. This was said by Joe Ajero, the president, in a statement. And he said this is not is an insensitive decision on his inauguration day, which brought tears to millions of Nigerians instead of hope. And he said subsidy removal is ill-timed and violates the condition precedents necessary before a decision is made. And the people are not happy about it. The decision were grave for the country's security and well-being, and so they are demanding an immediate withdrawal of the policy. However, TUC, on the other hand, differed a bit and saying that they just want the president to suspend the plans. They're supposed to have consultations and meeting with stakeholders where they bring a lot of people to the table. So he should give it time and, meet the appropriate people, have conversation, market women, people that it will affect, and see how they can gradually phase into it. LP, that's the Labour Party, jumped on it and also said that we should calm down. There are going to be more shocks and surprises that are coming, speaking as a voice of dissent. And the reps, on the other hand, said notwithstanding, they are going to back the president's removal of subsidy because he understands that at the end of the day, it's going to pay even the poor people more. But this is, something that we need to belt up and see through. And at the end of the day, we'll all smile for this.
Moving on now to Vanguard. Petrol subsidy removal not immediate, says presidency. Tinubu to DSS vacate EFCC office immediately. ASU court upholds federal government's no work, no pay policy. National Assembly leadership tussle. Group raises alarm over plots to arrest Yari and Terra. Adegoke's murders. Court sentences Oduduwa Varsity owner to two others to death by hanging. Obi calls first witness. Tenders exhibit of Tinubu's case. Zenith Bank named best corporate governance financial services in Africa. Okay, which story are we taking here? I'm not sure I have any news stories.
Yes, I have a story inside the paper. The mother of a 12-year-old primary school pupil, Hawking Snacks, who was raped in Igbokoda, Ondo State, by a security guard, is crying out for justice. So Madam Joy, the mother of the victim, is calling on the state government and well-meaning Nigerians to help her get justice for her daughter. The victim was raped while hawking puff puff. She was lured into an uncompleted building by the suspect and forcefully defied. They said the suspect, who hails from Kebbi State, went into hiding and later traveled back to Kebbi State. Yes. And, they traced him. The police actually traced him to Kebbi State, where he was presently hiding, and picked him up. So while Madame Joy was narrating her ordeal, said the incident happened in 2023, May 19. The daughter arrived from school on that day and told her she wanted to go and hawk puff puff because they needed money for school fees. She came home after an hour after selling that one, ate, and went back to hawk again. And when it was getting late, she said she told one of the sisters to, trace her and bring her home. But by the time she got home, a few minutes after 7 p.m., he said when she got to the house, she saw her and knew something was definitely wrong with her. But before she could narrate what had happened, she fainted and she was revived in the hospital. And that was where she told them about the aboki that, had his way with her. And then the matter has been in police. They've been trying to launch the manhunt for the suspect, and they are saying that he would definitely face the wrath of the law.
So there was this issue between the EFCC and the DSS. So the President Tinubu, yesterday directed the DSS to immediately vacate the office of the EFCC in Ikoyi. The operatives had laid siege to the Lagos office of the EFCC and prevented personnel of the EFCC to go into their offices. The President gave the directive when this report was brought to him. He said that these are two important agencies and issues must be resolved amicably. According to them, they have shared the same office for 20 years and they've never really had any issues. But in recent times, between the EFCC and DSS office, they're having issues in Lagos, but the President has asked them to leave that office for the EFCC. Okay, let's move on to the Nigerian Tribune, our last paper for today. How much time do we have? Let's find a story we've not taken. Nigeria spent 11 trillion, I took that already, on turnaround maintenance of 3 Mur6er refineries between 2010 and 2020. Auxiliary escapes as police arrest 78 suspects, recover arms, ammunition during raid. Court upholds federal government's no work, no pay policy against ASU. Labor talks tough, queues spread, petrol prices rise. Yeah, any story? Taking most of the story.
Yes. Ibadan said about 78 suspected members of Oyo State Park Management System, PMS, have been arrested by the State Police Command over violence. They recovered items from the suspects during the arrests, which included guns, 724 live cartridges, 25 cutlasses, 7 jackknives, 33 mobile phones, 1 laptop, charms, 2 vehicles, and over 3 million naira cash. They said that Governor Seyi Makinde on Monday, through the Chief of his Staff, Otumba Segun, announced the dissolution of the PMS, which was headed by the former NURTW boss, Alhaji Mukaila, popularly called Auxiliary. So while they were addressing journalists in Ibadan and parading the suspects, according to the police command headquarters in Ile-Ife, Ibadan, the Commissioner of Police, Adebole Williams, said because the police is actually very proactive in nature, they found and they got an intelligence that there were people who were ready to, create a carnage and civil disturbance, and because of the dissolution that had happened with the PMS, and so they went around and raided the place, coordinated the raid. Said the location was at Diamond Hotel, Alakia Isebo, under Egbeda local government area of the state, and they found 78 suspected hoodlums who who they had perfected plans to unleash mayhem in the early hours of today. And, you know, they were picked up and said they found a lot of ammunition, which I had mentioned earlier, with them. And so this is a warning to anyone who is trying to cause any form of harm in that area, that the police is out there to get them, and justice will just be served.
Okay, that's all we can take on Front Page Review.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.